You ready? Am I live? Oh, now you tell me after I was over here. Okay. Guys, I just want to touch base on this really quick. This is our 110 Walker welder. It's not mine, it's Leister's. I don't know if any of you had a chance to see this. I did trainings here where I've seen people go in and buy one of these after we got done. This is the original one that came out about 4 years ago. Now I can tell you Leister really threw a freaking monkey wrench in the plans when they came out with 2 new versions of this. Here about a year ago they came out with what they call a 300 and a 700. They were telling me that the 300 would be fine for what you needed to do. The thing that's nice about the 700 is if you're like a computer geek or you're a statistician, the 700 has like built-in GPS. You can get an app where it'll lock into this and it'll tell you how hot the machine was running, how fast it was running on certain seams. It just gives you a lot of statistical information that us as roofers, I could care less, you know what I mean? The only time stats counts is in football or basketball or hockey, you know what I'm saying? This, I just want it to do its thing. I don't know if any of you have an opinion on this thing. I love this thing. The reason why I love it is because it'll do everything the big one will do. But keep in mind, if you were to go to buy one of these today, do not buy that 300. I don't know why they put some type of governor on that thing so it won't get as hot as it should. It's great for doing details, flashing, curbs, walls. But as far as doing seams, forget about it. I took this machine, I let my father-in-law use it. He used it on a job in downtown Detroit, 14 stories in the air. It was the old General Motors World Headquarters. Very difficult roof. You had to get underneath freaking big cooler units and stuff like that. You had to crawl under them. I took this machine, I took the handle off it, I took the weights off it. I was putting this thing in spots that you didn't think you could get a machine in. He goes, I gotta have one. I told him just buy the 300. You don't need to pay the extra money for the 700. The guy said the 300 will be perfect. Well, he bought the 300 and it wouldn't do it. He is so freaking mad. He goes, Pat, that freaking machine, it won't get up to speed. I can't do my seams. It's not like your machine. Like I said, my machine's the original one. It's called the Uniroof is what it's called. Now they have, like I said, I think it's the Uniroof 300, the Uniroof 700, okay? So I don't know, I don't think it's that big of a cost difference between the two. It might be $300 or $400. But if you were to buy one of these and you wanted to use it for doing your seams and everything, you gotta go with the 700. Again, I'm not here to sell you anything. What's nice about this machine is, guys, is it just plugs into house power. Now keep in mind, different house power is going to be differently depending on where I plug in. I can tell you on that job in Detroit, we were 14 stories. I got a little, looks like a little bowling ball case in there. I walked in with that sucker in the elevator, got in the elevator, went up on the roof. We plugged it into the penthouse. Works perfect, right? What I mean perfect is when you turn this machine on, it gets right up to 1148 degrees, which is what the big one does. This thing will go 32.8 feet a minute. You don't need to go that. Anybody that's ever ran a robot knows you don't need to be going that fast. I'm in Michigan. We usually run these robots 8 to 10 feet a minute, depending on how cold it is. In the summertime, we might go 12 to 14 feet a minute. Again, in the summertime. Now, when I'm in Florida, they'll run that machine anywhere from 14 to 18 feet a minute. Because, you know, it's hot there all the time. And you guys know, the hotter or warmer it is out, the faster you can run the machine. I've had people say, why do I want this one? It only goes so fast. Why do I want to go 12 feet when I can buy, because they had one here a while back that would go like 50 feet a minute. If you've ever ran one of these, you know if you're going 50 feet a minute, if you get off, you're screwed. I mean, that's a repair you got to make. And anybody can get off with these machines. That's why I say, you know, 12 foot a minute, that's plenty good. You're going 100 feet at 12 feet a minute. What are you doing that in? I mean, 12 minutes? 8 minutes? Thank you. 8 minutes. I told you I wasn't good with math. 8 minutes you're doing a 100-foot seam. I mean, that's plenty fast, right? So again, I like this because you don't need that big generator. You know, usually with the big 220 machine, you got to have at least what, 5,500 watt machine or something like that. You got to have the machine. Usually you got to run the robot just with that one machine. You got to constantly put and be gas in it. If you're on a high roof, you got to get that shit up there. You need a crane. This little bad boy, you just walk it right up there, and I'm telling you, I love this thing, man. It is one bad machine, I'm telling you. And the biggest knock that I get about the machine is the front end gets a little loose right here, or the rear end. When you're going, it'll get a little wobbly. And again, it's just like anything. You gotta buy, if it's doing that, but you can buy more plates to put on there, right? They hook right on. I tell guys, if you don't want to do that, get a frickin' coffee can and fill it with lead or fill it with concrete. Frickin' somehow rig it on there or something, It might look stupid, but, But I personally, I've ran it, and I have ran this on a job. I haven't had any problems with it getting loose, but they say, oh, the rear end's a little swirly on it. Well, just add a little bit more weight to it. I can plug this in if you guys want to see it. We don't have to, we can, if you want to see it go. But I can tell you, one thing that I preach, like I said, I don't know everything. I started welding in '83. They didn't have the machines out quite yet. I think they came out a few years later. My opinion now, and this is just my opinion, when I set this machine up, I don't try to overthink it. This isn't a drag car. You don't have dual carburetors where you're trying to dial the carburetors in, right? I've had guys try to overthink these things where I've had to fly all the way to Seattle, Washington and spend 45 minutes on a job because they were trying to adjust all 3 settings, right? Now, most of you guys know, where's my man at? When these first came out, you only had 3 things you could do. Turn it on, adjust the heat, and adjust the speed, right? Now they got this airflow thing, and that's the thing that makes me mad. Because these guys will come in, they want to argue about airflow. Oh, you got to run it at 75%. And you got to do this. Honestly, guys, I'm trying to be up front. When I turn the machine on, I turn the machine right to 1148. That's top heat. I leave the airflow at 100%, and all I adjust is the speed according to the temperature outside. So if it's really cold, say it's 20 degrees out, we'll probably have that thing running at about 10 feet a minute. Again, a lot of this is going to come into play. If you're running 80 mil membrane or 60 mil membrane, it's going to go even slower because the membrane's thicker. If you're running 45 mil membrane, you might be able to go a little bit faster. So there's a lot of things that play into the overall setup on this. You put it at 75, right? We were in Texas. We were running that machine. It was cooking the machine, but what he had happening see right here, we did this the other day to show people. See this? That's little particles of TPO that get hot, and when they get stuck to that wheel, when that wheel goes around, it can stick to the new TPO, and it'll tear little spots out of the TPO. My uncle did a job in Darlington, South Carolina. It was 4,500 square. This is honest to God truth. I had to have him strip the whole roof in. Every 4 to 6 inches down every single seam, he had about an eraser-sized little chunk of TPO missing because they were getting particles on the wheel because they were running these too slow. And it was getting so hot that it was melting, and you were see this stuff sticks on there. And once it's on there and that wheel goes around, it will stick, tear, stick, tear. So every 4 to 6 inches, I had little chunks where when you looked at the white roof, all you could see was the polyester reinforcement, and you could see the gray underply. That's no good. Man, I'm telling you what, I thought it was going to ruin our relationship. But they called in the salespeople. They came in, they went over, had a little meeting, come back, said it's all taken care of. I don't know what happened. All I know is I asked my uncle, am I still invited over for dinner tonight? Because I was sick to my stomach. But the problem with that is they had a guy that didn't know roofing, that he put in charge. He didn't know any better. But they know now. They've always told me if you take like Pam cooking spray or something, keep them neoprene wheels, but you got to keep them clean, okay? But this is what happened when we were in Texas, and I just sat there and chuckled, and I'm like, yeah, okay, you're supposed to know everything. I wasn't trying to embarrass them. I wasn't trying to put them on the spot. I'm just trying to help because I want you guys to hear it, hear the right way and not hear the wrong way. All right? Another thing about these machines, you see that tracking wheel? I don't like those tracking wheels myself. What they'll do is they'll push that down, and they'll use that wheel, and they'll be back here watching that wheel and guiding it down the edge of that seam. I don't like that. I had a Walmart that I did back in the 90s when I was a foreman. I let a young guy run the machine. He was watching that wheel. We had over 250 feet of seam we had to strip in because that wheel's got a little set screw in there. You take an Allen wrench to adjust it. If that wheel gets off and you're following that wheel, you're screwed. I mean, when you're driving down the road, you're not going to sit there and look back at the trunk the whole time when you're going forward, right? All the magic, everything that happens right here, gentlemen. Right here where this tire is. So when I start my machine, I start it out right here. When I engage that, I'm constantly watching the edge of that neoprene wheel to make sure it's running right down the edge of the TPO, right? I'm not watching this. There's nothing going on back there. That's not to say that you couldn't take it and you love to use the guide wheel. Again, at the end of the day, if Eric comes on the job and everything probes out, I don't care if you did it blindfolded. Whatever your way of doing it, as long as it comes out good, that's all that matters at the end of the day to everybody. But I'm just letting you know I had bad experience with that. I told him not to use the wheel. Half hour later, I look, he's using the wheel again. I took a frickin' east wing hammer and I beat that wheel off there. I took it and I just started smacking it. Now every word out of my mouth was not a good word. I said, now use the wheel. I don't think the owner appreciated that, but that's true though. I did do that. I beat the wheel out there with an east wing hammer. I was like, do not use that wheel on my job. You already messed up 250 feet, all right? Does anybody want to see this go? No? Yeah? All right, we'll move on to something else then. I want to let you know, if you want to make sure you're getting the right amount of juice to this machine, I highly recommend you get a 10 gauge cord, okay? That's a 50 footer. Now you can get a 100 footer, but you know that stuff is pricey. I've got a 50 footer. I can tell you right now, if you hook a 12 gauge cord, a 100 foot 12 gauge cord, more than likely you're not going to hit 1148 at this. Now that doesn't mean, if that machine gets to 1,000 degrees, I'm running it. I can run it all day long. It only takes like, I think it's 375 degrees to melt TPO, all right? So if I can get that machine to 1,000, all that means to me is I'm not going to be running it at 13, 14, 15 feet a minute. I'm probably going to be running it at anywhere from 11, 12, 13 feet, right? At 1,000. But like I said, I like to get up to 1148, and then I can really get it cooking along, all right? If you use the 10 gauge cord, you should hit 1148 every single time, all right? Usually I'm a smart guy and I go, if I plug in and we don't hit 1140, I'm like, well, evidently they didn't pay the electrical bill this month, is what I always say. But most of the time it'll work. I promise you guys, this machine is bad to the bone. This past, around Christmas time, I was in Cincinnati, Ohio. I told them the story. They called me out. I said, they said, let's go out inside. Let's go outside and see you do it. I said, better yet, let's go up on the roof of your building and let's do it. And they actually had a 100 foot 10 gauge cord, and I took them outside. They're two superintendents, and we ran it. I ran it, and they're like, let me do it. The one guy did it. He did it fine. The other guy, 2 times he ran it, and he kept getting a cold weld. I said, well, the only problem here is you. Because the other superintendent, he ran it like I did, and we both got good welds. So, but they were just like, wow, that's incredible. But then they also admitted that they were using 12 gauge cords. And I told them, hey, we need a 10 gauge cord, okay? Keep that in mind. That's good, you know, to get the right amount of juice going into this thing, you know, because it does got like computer board in there. It's, you know, it's computer shit. I don't know what it is in there exactly, but you know, you can fry that stuff from what I've been told. And I apologize, guys. I'm kind of a little rough around the edges, still more of a construction guy. I'm not into the fine words or the proper termage for, you know, saying the right things for this stuff, but you know, people ask me again, you know, how many voltage and all that. I don't know all that stuff, you know what I mean? But I do know how to make it run. You know, and if you listen to the guys from Leister, and I've tried to tell them, hey, listen, I'm not trying to argue with you guys. You guys make the machines. It's just like Ford and GM. They make the cars, but who knows how to make them run fast? The NASCAR boys do, right? Them boys know how to take them General Motors and Ford products, and they know how to tweak them. Leister might make it, and they'll say, well, it can't do that, and it can't do this. And I'm like, believe me, when you're in the field, you know what these things can do and what they can't do. So this thing right here, like I said, it'll go all day. It'll do everything that big one will do. And if it don't, just call that number on the side of the thing right there, and I'll come out there and see if I can correct the problem for you, okay? Any questions on this, guys? As far as the pricing, I know it's cheaper than the 220 machine. I think it's V2. It's cheaper than that. I just don't know how much. Do you know we also make an adapter wheel on this right here? I've got one in the trailer where these wheels swivel, And you can actually take this machine and you can go in a circumference, go in circles with it to do round radiuses, yeah, for our accessories and stuff. I've got it, I've never used it. But that's it. I want to tell you guys something. I've seen guys take the weights off and they take that tracking wheels off right there and they just take them things like this and run them right down the wall, run them on an expansion wall, take this handle off. You could put this thing in a lot of places, you know, that you realize you could put it. I use this on everything I can possibly use this on. Everything. I don't care if it's a 2-foot seam. I'll do it on that, okay? Any questions? Okay, so we'll talk about EPDM real quick. You know, we've got our, you know, this is our, what we call our, well, this is peel and stick rubber. We've got our cured rubber, or I mean, our standard rubber, which is what you would call cured. You make that in 45 mil, 60 mil, and 90 mil rubber you can get it in. You can also buy our rubber, which comes in 60 mil with the peel and stick, all right? Again, you'll be using the cleaner over there, the splice wash, which comes in the green can, to clean your membrane. Now, we make some other accessories. This is where it gets a little tricky. We make our quick seam flashings, which I have one right here, that's 9-inch. We make quick seam flashings at 5-inch, 9-inch, 12-inch. I think you can even get it in 18, but I never see that. The quick seam flashings are for detailing. They're for putting your patches at your angle changes, cutting patches out of that for T-joints. Hell, we'll even let you cut this right here and make outside corners. Didn't that just change? I forgot about that. Just TPO.
Well, I think you don't have to have
prefab for 20 years anymore. I keep forgetting that. Rubber, I don't think so though yet.
I don't think so.
I think it's just TPO. I know we changed it for that, so that's what we're going to talk about. What we're talking about, everybody, is if you do this roof right here, you know back in the day, before they had all these prefabricated details, this is all we had, you know, back in the 70s, 80s, 90s. This is all you had right here, roll 24-inch unsupported, right? You would have to cut everything out of that. So if you did an outside corner, you'd cut something that looked like this right here. Something similar. You could do a Pac-Man, a bow tie, whatever you want to call it. Now you've got this, now you've got to turn this into an outside corner, right? If you can believe it, that membrane is actually 60 mils thick. I still don't believe it, but they say it's 60 mils. So, we take this, now we've got to heat this up, and we've got to get this thing to form into this corner, right? This is a prefab. There's no stretching or forming with this. What we were allowing you to do is you could take this, you could still take this today and do an outside corner, but you only get a 15-year warranty if you used unsupported. If you were wanting a 20-year warranty or higher, you had to use all prefab stuff. You know, even with our peel and sticks, you can use our peel and stick products up to 20 years, but once you get over 20 years, say like our 30-year platinum system with EPDM, no more peel and sticks. Our, 25-year medallion for TPO, can't use any peel and sticks. They just changed this here a while back. Now they're saying you can use unsupported again, up to 20-year warranty. I think because some of our competitors changed it, so now we changed back. But that used to be the rule. This was only good up to 15-year warranty. After that, it had to be prefab. Now you can use this, okay? And the reason why is, especially in colder climates, you're taking this at 60 mils and you're heating it up, and now you've got to stretch it and you've got to form it. When you're stretching this and forming it, you're thinning the mils. So you're taking what was once 60 mils and now you're stretching it down to 57 mils or 55 mils or 40 mils. It makes it more susceptible to want to crack or split. And I know most of you know, if you've went on a lot of older jobs, where you'll see it split is right here. Get a lot of cracking and splitting right there, right? So that's why they started coming out with prefab stuff. prefab, you're not stretching and forming. It's already meant to go into that shape, all right? But again, like I said, now for 20 years, you can use either one. I tell everybody, when you're doing TPO, always have a roll of this on your job. Why do I say that? Because you can go buy a box of TPO prefabricated corners or TPO prefabricated T-joints, or you can just cut it out of that roll. You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of purposes you can do with that. You know, you can cut that and use it. One thing I want to let you guys know, that if you look at our details for TPO and for black EPDM and Eco White, those details, the pictures of them, are exactly the same. The only thing they change is at the bottom. It'll either say EPDM or it'll say TPO, but the details look exactly the same for a lot of our details. And that's because, again, with the TPO and EPDM, you're using peel and stick products. The products are very similar. The only thing is, TPO, not only can you use peel sticks, but you can weld it as well. So keep that in mind. The details are very similar. Whenever on TPO or EPDM and you have a field seam, and wherever it goes into an angle change that's, you know, an inch or greater, what is it? 1 to 12, thank you. 1 inch per 12 angle change, you've got to put an additional patch there. It's just a belt and suspenders patch. You know what I mean? I never used to gig people on it, but then I got audited and they started tearing me up saying, you need to make them do it. I'm like, well, if it's nice and tight into the angle and it's welded, I don't have a problem with it, because I used to do it. You know, I roofed, it'll work. They're like, we don't care how tight it is. As a manufacturer, we want that extra belt and suspenders patch put in there. So keep that in mind. That's something that you'll see on EPDM and TPO. Any angle changes need to be patched. Anything that's 60 mil or greater in thickness, you have to have T-joints on. 45 mil, you don't need to put T-joints anywhere your field seams cross each other. You don't need T-joints. I myself, where I came from, we always put T-joints on everything. Didn't matter if it was 45 mil or 60 mil. You're right there. It only takes a second to throw that patch down, right? Anywhere you've got field membrane crossing field membrane, you've got to have a T-patch, if it's 60 mil or greater.
Right, I'm forced to do 45 mil.
No, you don't need it. If it's 45 mil, you don't need no T's. If that seam goes into an angle, though, you do. That's where we get into arguments, too, with people. If you look at the details.
If that was a curve, I needed it at the angle change. I don't need it here. That's what I was asking.
Yes.
When the total for the curve comes down,
yeah.
Right. Because that's 45 on 45. Only in the angle change.
Yeah.
Right? If it's on the flat, if the flashing is on the flat, I don't need it just in the angle change the stress back.
And I'll get guys who'll say, well, it's 45 mil. You don't require it. I'm like, yeah, we do. We don't require a T-patch, but the angle patch is still always required, no matter what the mill is. Yeah, PVC details are really simple because of the fact that you can't use peel and sticks on it. TPO gets a little bit more complicated because you got the best of, well, kind of the best, not of both worlds, but you got welding and sticking. Yes, you have multiple options. It's nice, especially, I call guys that are younger than me rubberheads, because you know, where's my man at? You know, when Trocal started shattering and falling apart, it was easy to come in with a 50 by 100 rubber and just cover it right up right now and be done with it. So then everything just like went to rubber, right? And then all of a sudden as time went on, people were like, well, man, we love that flexibility of the rubber, but we like the weldability of the PVC. So that's where they come in. And this is just me saying this. I call it a hybrid. They kind of took the best of both and made TPO. So now you got a sheet, because I don't know if you know this or not, but a welded seam is a lot stronger than a seam that's put together with tapes and primers. So you've got that weldable seam, which is nice too, because you know when you get ponding water, we don't like to see any seams that are put together with tape and primer, we don't like to see them underwater, because that water, algae growth, all that'll break the seam down. With a welded seam, we don't care so much, because then welded seams will hold up, they're strong, right? So that's what's nice about that when it came out with that TPO. You know, you got that flexibility of the EPDM, plus you can use the peel and stick products on it, but you can also weld it. So then when that started to come out, now you could take a very diverse a crew. You might have 1 or 2 guys you can heat weld, but the rest of the guys are all good with peel and stick, and you could have the whole crew could stay busy. Because you could have guys over here priming and sticking, you could have guys over here welding, and they could just get after it. You know, now people are starting to get back into heat welding again. They're starting to learn that, what I call a lost art of welding. You know, welding, PVC, and TPO. A lot of people don't know how to run them heat guns. You'd be surprised. You know, we travel, like I said, all over the place. We see people that have no clue, you know, so. Yes, it is, yes. And, you know, now that you're bringing that up, you know, I know we're jumping all over the place, gentlemen, but you know, here's your tape you're gonna put in your seams for your EPDM. So you know you're gonna put your sheet down. You're gonna take your next sheet. You're gonna overlap it. What, about 4 inches? We say. You're gonna overlap that next sheet onto the sheet that's already down 4 inches. How many of you take a crayon and pre-mark that edge? You cannot believe. God is my witness. I still, every year, I'll go somewhere in this country, and people don't even know anything about that crayon. And I show them, and you'd think I discovered microwave popcorn. Buddy, where I live, when they set that roof of that material, I'd go over to get them crayons out of them boxes. Them boxes would already be ripped open. Them boys were grabbing them crayons. Does anybody understand what I mean by that? When you're marking the thing with the crayon. So say, you know, we're going to overlap these 2 sheets. You're going to want to overlap it 4 inches. Right? Here's your field seam. And what you're going to want to do once you've got this overlapped, you take that crayon on the side of your finger like this. Everybody's got their own technique, but whoever does it, you know, that's who will do it all the time. When I ran jobs, I always had 2 guys that set the seam tape, and I always had 2 guys that could run the robot. And they were the only ones that did that, because everybody wants to do it. But you know darn well, if you screw up that seam, you're in big trouble, right? What you're gonna do is you're gonna take that crayon, and you're just gonna run your finger right down the edge like this right here. Now again, you can mark it however much you want. I've seen guys that'll mark it every 20 feet, every 10 feet, every 2 feet, it doesn't matter. Now I can tell you, say this is fully adhered rubber, you'll see guys take their scrubby pad and they'll take primer across there, and then they'll fold this back onto itself with the primer, all right, to keep that seam up. Some people don't like to see those primer lines, so what we used to do is we'd fold this back and then take screws and stick them in the ISO down through there. The screws will hold this up. Now that you've got that line exposed, now you come in with your scrubby pad. Usually when you're doing a field seam, you will use a stand-up scrubby pad on a stick. You'll prime this and you'll prime this. There's no need to clean this product. When it's new out of the package, you do not need to clean it. Now if it gets exposed to dirt or dust or rain or something like that, you may want to clean it. But when you're breaking stuff out of the package, you don't need to clean it. You prime this edge. Once it's ready to rock and roll, now what you'll do is, everybody wanted the clear backing. I don't like the clear backing. I'm a paper guy myself. They said, well, I like the clear because I can see. I'm telling you, if you mark that with the crayon, I don't care if it's paper or it's copper or it's plastic, I don't care what it is. It will be on the money. So what you'll do is, and the whole key is, when you go to set this right here, you're going to set that plastic edge right on that white line. Now keep in mind, I didn't prime this, but we'll go ahead and run this. I want to show you another little secret you can do. Now that you got me down here. Always keep a little scrap like this right here. Stick it underneath here when you go to cut this. That will keep you, see this right here? These are from guys using my scissors. You get that all gummed up, if you use that little piece on there, it won't gum up on you. And you just keep taking that off there, keep it in your pocket. So I understand, I did not prime this, but what you're gonna do is, you're gonna set that edge just like this, gentlemen. That edge will be right on that white line. Now when you lay this back down again, it should line up just like that. If you want to come closer and see, I know I'm cheating because it ain't glued down, but you should have, you know, we need about 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 inch of tape sticking out the edge, okay? Now, we will give you a little bit more than that. What is it, Eric? Is it a ½ inch? So if you've got that much tape exposed, ½ inch or more, you're gonna have to strip it in. Now, if you use 6-inch seam tape or 7-inch seam tape, I think we'll give you up to 1 inch that can be exposed on a 6-inch seam tape.
What happens if they do it the other way? Seam tape ain't exposed.
Then I just take a knife and trim it back. As if you've got a detail that's a little bit out of the ordinary, get your guy involved, get Eric involved, get Kevin involved. Send a photo, take a picture of it, send it over to Eric. Get the other parties above you involved. We'll come up with some type of compromise that's going to be not just beneficial for you, but for me as well. You know what I mean? Got to have a little give and take. Yeah, we'll give you this, but you got to give us this. You know what I mean? We're not there just to drive you in the ground and keep selling you stuff. You know what I mean? My contractors, I have a great relationship with my guys in Michigan, most of them, because they'll call and say, hey, Pat, how should we do this? And I'll say, hey, we'll either figure it out between the two of us, or we'll go up the chain of command and see if we can get a deviation, you know what I mean? But if you got a guy, I always say, if you got an inspector that's just a total ball buster, throw him off the roof. All right? Any questions on any of that, gentlemen? Except for the throwing them off the roof thing.
That's when I'm moving out of the way.
Okay, so, again, when we come to our quick seam flashings, 5, 9, 12, and an 18, all I usually see is the 5 and the 9. Now, we throw in this little thing called 6-inch bar cover tape. That's a real pain in the rear end for me and for everybody else. You know, if you do mechanically attached rubber, that means you're putting batten bar through a standard EPDM sheet like that right there, you're screwing through there. Now, if you go to regular rubber and do mechanically attached, it has to be batten bar. You cannot use plates, because the plate with the wind uplift will rip, the rubber will rip around a plate on standard rubber. Now, if you use reinforced rubber, you can use plates, and they're not going to be barred plates with teeth. They're going to be 2-inch round flat plates. You can use plates or you can use batten bar. And when I mean batten bar, I mean the metal strips that come in 10 foot long, or you can buy the polymer bar, which comes in the pizza box. You can use either or on reinforced rubber, but when it comes to regular standard rubber, you can only use batten bar, because it's a continual compression down on the sheet, where a plate every 12 inches, the wind can just lift the sheet and rip around it, okay? So, we're doing a mechanically attached system. We've got our battens in the seam to hold the rubber down, which I think that system sucks, because why would you put rubber down and then put holes in it, right? But when you get to your perimeter edges, you need to add what they used to call perimeter T's. Now they call them perimeter I's, because they did away with the cross section. So you've got a roof, say you've got 10-foot sheets running down through here like this, right? You've got to put a 10-foot piece of batten bar in the middle, 10 foot long, down the middle of each 10-foot wide sheet. Once you've screwed that batten bar down, now you come in with what we call 6-inch batten bar cover tape. That stuff looks like this, but it's what I call it semi-cured, because it's got a lot more memory than your quick seam flashing, but a little less memory than your rubber. So I call rubber, this is what I call it now, just not to get any confusion. Rubber to me is a cured product. Bar cover tape is a semi-cured. You cannot use that stuff for putting it in angle changes or flashing pipes and stuff like that. It'll start to stretch, but it'll want to convert back. We get guys all the time that'll buy 6-inch, and they're in here, and they're trying to do this detail right here, and they come back the next day and it's popped open. Why? Because it's semi-cured. That's why you want to use this. This is one thing too that makes me mad. If you look at this sheet, you see it, it's kind of shiny. It's got what we call dimples or diamonds in it, right? Well, you used to be able to tell the difference between 6-inch and 5-inch, because the 6-inch would be like a flat black, and then right down the middle of that 6-inch would be dash marks. That's how you knew, because when you go to strip in that batten bar, you would lay that down so that the dash marks on the top were lined up with that bar, and that's how you knew. Now, to save money, they look identically the same. They got the diamonds and dimples. You know what I mean? It's hard to tell. The only way you can tell is if you either measure it or you take it and you start to pull it. If you've got quick seam flashing, you pull it, it'll start to stretch. You'll start to see the diamonds or the dimples just start to destroy. You know, they fall apart. That's how you tell. Anyway, though, the reason why I got on this long tangent about bar cover tape is, guys get that shit mixed in with the quick seam products all the time, and it just throws a monkey wrench and everything. They'll call and say, hey, we're using your 5-inch and it's not working. And they'll swear up and down it's our 5-inch, and then we go out there and it's damn 6-inch bar cover tape. Now, we make that bar cover tape in 6 and 9 inches. So, you know, it is good. The bar cover tape is good for stripping in metal edges, but you don't have to. We tell you to use the 5-inch quick seam flashing, which again, it's not as durable as the 6-inch, but you can use that 5-inch, and that's what pretty much everybody uses. I like the 5-inch better because if it's going down through there, say your substrate board or your metal flange is not, maybe there might be a little bit of a hump or dip in the actual substrate, 5-inch it'll roll right in there and stay tight, where 6-inch bar cover, because it's semi-cured, you put that shit in any little dips or you overlap it, that stuff pops open all the time, okay? So that's the difference in those. Quick seam flashings, semi-cured flashings, which are the bar cover, and then you've got your cured rubber. Any questions? Inside, outside, corners, come in the box. Yo, 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 you've seen these. Again, everything's switching to plastic on the back, because my man here, they listen to what he says. You guys know when you're putting these on, again, I tell people, we'll talk about it with the welding. And this is just my preference, gentlemen. When I take these, I like to fold these in half, all right? You can see one little edge is a little bit bigger than the other. Not much. When I do these, and again, this is just to help people, I don't try to stick my stuff right into the angle change. I try to stick it up just up off the edge a little bit. You know, just a little bit. And then I work my angles from the middle out. From the middle out. Get that down. The key to this is getting the vertical stuck first. Once you've got your vertical stuck, now you can come in and you can roll this down into the angle. Then once you've got that angle, now you come in and you roll that down into the angle. I call those the 3 anchor points, your vertical and your 2 angle changes. That's where you're going to have your failures. That's where the membrane's going to pull off, because you're going into an angle change, and that material does not want to be put into an angle change. This is like a rubber band. It does not want to be stretched, right? So once we've got these down like this right here, where these 3 termination points are terminated, now I'll come in, I'll work my fingers in the middle, and I'll work everything from the middle outward like this. Once I've got this down, the next thing I'll do, normally this right here, it'll be stuck kind of like this. Now what I'll do is when I start to stretch this, I'm kind of stretching, but I'm pulling it this way, towards the wall. Never try to work it from here and work it outward, because when you start sticking it from here and going this way, it'll want to pull this out away from the wall. So always work this all the way down to the middle. So this thing is anchored now right here, right up the middle, and it's anchored right here. Now I just got to get this piece of the pie and this piece of the pie down. When I do that, I'll kind of stretch it, but I'll pull it and I'll work that towards the wall, and I'll pull this side and work this into the wall. Because if you start at that angle change and try to work it out, more times than not, it's going to pull it right out of that angle change on you, okay? Just a little thing that I like to do. I like to do the same thing on my TPO. When I get this, of course, you know, these are always kind of stiff. I'll warm these up, get them a little hot. Then I'll come in. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to weld that vertical right there. Once you've got that vertical, she's locked into place now. I had a guy in Jacksonville, Florida 2 years ago. He said, I'm going to show you how to do that. So I said, go ahead. He stuck it right here. He started welding down here first. He got all this welded. Now look. He's screwed because the vertical's already, all this is already terminated. That's why I said terminate that vertical first. Once you've got that vertical terminated, now you can heat weld this angle change and that angle change. So that gives you 1, 2, 3. There's your 3 anchor points. Once those 3 anchor points are down like that, now all you gotta do is finish welding that. The reason why I teach it this way, guys, is because, and Eric can vouch for me, We'll go on jobs where we'll see it look like this right here. They'll pinch this top part right here like this, and then they'll fold it over onto itself. And I'm like, how in the hell did you do that? I know how they did it, because they didn't weld the vertical in first. You know what I'm saying? And again, I'm not trying to change the way you guys do things. If you weld it and you're getting it welded perfect, keep doing it however you're doing it. I don't care if you're doing it upside down. As long as it looks good when we get there, that's all that matters at the end of the day. You know, but I'm just showing you this because a lot of guys mess this up. They get it pinch wrinkled up there, all right? That's why I'm teaching you to do it that way. I do the same thing with my inside corners. I'll weld this vertical first, get that stuck in there, and then I'll do the 2 angles, and then I just weld the rest of it nice and neat. As I told you earlier, they do make various tips. They even make little pencil tips. They make tips that are 90-degree angles. There's all kinds of tips out there. When they sell you the gun, though, I don't even know if they even give you the big tip anymore. We bought a bunch of guns. They didn't even come with it, no tips. Yeah, well, we got Leister. We didn't get no tips, but when we used to buy the Leisters, you'd get a big tip. They're not going to sell you these tips because these tips are expensive. Again, yeah, it's all about the accessories. I thought about buying a bunch of them and then selling them, making some money off of them. I mean, I'm going to have the company pay for them, then I'm going to sell them, right? Any questions, gentlemen? Here's another little gadget I just love. They sell you these things, and depending on how you cut it, is what you get. You think if you made one cut, you'd have an inside and an outside corner. They're not gonna be that kind to you. So if you cut it here, it becomes an outside corner. If you cut it here, it becomes an inside corner. It's all about that paper, baby. Got to make that money, right? You think they'd make it so, like I said, when you cut it, you'd get the best of both worlds. Any questions? All right, what do you think, Eric? I got it, guys. Most of you might call this rust strip. That's a Carlisle term. We call it RPFS strip, reinforced perimeter fastening strip. Now, I can tell you this much, Carlisle was the one that developed base attachment. They went through all the trials and tribulations of it. I was telling my man here earlier, first time I ever stepped on a job was in 1976 with my father. I was 9 years old, and it was a Carlisle ballasted system. And they did not have this then yet. What they had, and maybe you can help me out here, it was a black, like polymer plastic bar that was like 2 or 3 inches wide. That's what he used. But he also told me that before they used that, they would use like a 1x1 piece of nailer, a wood board, a board in there. They'd put a little board in there with a little bit of a 45 at the top. Then they switched to the polymer bar. Then the next thing you know, this comes out and it looks like this, okay? Then, I don't know who gets credit for it. Maybe somebody can help me here. They added the tape to it, okay? Yeah, I thought we were the ones that added the tape. So now it looks like this. My dad calls it rust strip and I get mad as hell. But I can tell you where my dad messes up. My dad always says, which way does it go into the angle change? So when you cut, huh? No, that's not what I mean. When you come to the wall and you got to go up, does it go this way or does it go this way? Okay, but that's one good way of knowing how to do it. Stick side always goes out. The X's always go towards the wall. Why? Just what my man said. If you've got a concrete deck, you don't want to drill into the concrete, but you have a wood substrate sheathing, you could actually turn this. Eric, help me out a little here, brother. You could do this what the big man said. You fold it up into the wall like this, and then you put your plates and screws. Again, the 2-inch non-barred plate is what you're going to use. You're not going to use the barred plate. Barred plates are only for when you're doing TPO mechanically attached. So if you got concrete, you don't want to drill in, But you can go into the wood sheathing of the wall. You can put the X's up onto the wall, put your plates and screws every 12 inches, the tape goes down here, and that's how you would do it. Otherwise, you just lay it flat like this right here if you're going to screw into a wooden nailer, okay? But the X's always go towards the wall. My dad messes this up all the time. Yes, sir. They changed that too. It used to be you could only go up to 6 inches. Now it's even higher, ain't it, Eric?
It's 10 inches before you have to have a wood nailer. Car allows is unlimited. The strip has to go, if you put it on the flat, it has to go within 6 inches of the wall. That's to clear any beams that are down there. Always has to be 12 inches on center. And with our base tie-ins and our terminations, we do not like to deviate.
RPF strip for TPO. All it is basically field membrane with the tape on there. Now I get asked all the time, can you mix and match these with black and white? What do you say? I don't have a problem with it.
So yes.
Yeah, I don't have a problem if you use the white on an EPDM or the black on a TPO. You know, I can tell you some horror stories what I've done with 6-inch wide field membrane and threw it in there and pretended like it was RPF strip. Hopefully the roof didn't fail, so they didn't have to come back and cut it open. So anyway, gentlemen, anywhere you have an angle change an inch or higher or greater in height, you have to have base attachment. If you come to a wall, say you come to an edge and there's a nailer, and that nailer is, say, a 1/2 inch up off that angle change, you don't need it. But if that angle change, that nailer sits up an inch or greater and creates that 1 inch gap, you will need to put RPF strip in there. Now you could eliminate that as well by throwing in taper. We see guys put in tapered insulation or what we call 18-inch tapered hardboard, which is, what is that, 3 foot long?
4 foot long. It comes in 6, 12, and 18, and 24 inches. It goes typically from nothing to either 3/4 or.
You could throw that in there and eliminate that angle change. That way you wouldn't have to use RPF strip. There's a lot of different things, but the biggest thing to remember is an inch. If you take our piece of batten bar, which is the polymer or the steel bar, which you can use as well as plates, that's 1 inch wide. If that bar fits into that vertical, then you need it, okay? Always remember that. Any angle change greater than 1 inch, and that's usually gonna fall at a curb or at a wall, you're gonna need RPF strip or a batten strip or something in there for base attachment, okay? And then again, anytime you got an angle change 1 inch or greater, you're gonna need a blowout patch on any seam that turns into an angle change like that. You will need that on our TPO as well as our EPDM, whether it's black or it's white. We do make the Eco White rubber. I guess that's making a comeback. You hear anything about that, Kevin? I said Kevin. Oh, okay. Oh, you're twice as smart. You got me some ice. So, gentlemen, I want to tell you something about that Eco White rubber. You know, we come out with a system called Ultra Blend, where you can mix and match Eco White accessories, including the actual rubber sheet, with TPO, and get a 20-year warranty. And what do I mean by that? You could come in and do a TPO roof where you're roboting all your seams with hot, because you have to heat all your seams with a robot, but then do all your details in peel and stick. Because everything we make in black, we make in white. It's in the truck. I'm not going to go in the trailer and turn my back on you guys again, but we make our white inside outside corners look just like that. For our quick seam flashings, we make it 6 and 12. It looks like this. I actually push this for stripping in metal on TPO, because up until we made Eco White, all we had for stripping in edge metal is what we call 5.5 inch TPO cover tape, which is the exact same thing as that darn 6-inch black bar cover tape. It's semi-cured, stuff wants to pop, it doesn't go into angles very good because it's semi-cured. That stuff is 5.5 inches wide, and it's just a flat white. There's no diamonds or dimples, and you know when you got your hands on it. Because it, like again, I don't like it. What I've told my contractors to do is come in and buy the Eco White 6-inch. Because it's like the black quick seam flashing. You can strip in your edge metal with that, and it works like a charm, okay? Eric, help me out here. He brought it up earlier. So you're stripping in your edge metal. Anywhere a field seam comes into that stripping, you need a T-patch. You're running your stripping on the metal. You run out. Now you got to start up another one. You overlap it. Down here where these overlap, you need to put another patch. We call them like belt and suspender patches. Anywhere you have a joint in the metal, every 10 foot, you put your metal down, you nail the flange, you start another 10-foot piece, you leave a little 1/4-inch gap there, you need to strip in that joint in the metal with this, if it's TPO or Eco White, or if it's black rubber. So all the joints in your metal, anywhere the stripping overlaps itself, anywhere a field seam comes in, and when you come to the corner of the building and you're stripping in your metal, and you bring this piece in, and then you overlap the next piece right here, on that inside T right there, you need another patch. Now here's where we get beat up. This is the uncured flashing. Why the hell do we got to put a T-joint patch on it? It's just one more belt and suspenders patch. That's all we're asking for. But the thing we get from people is now we've went ahead. Here we've got this going across the edge metal. We've got our field seam coming in. Now we put a piece of this on there, 4x4-inch piece. Now we've created 3 more T's. So I'll get people like that and they'll be like, I got to T-joint my way off the job. I'm like, no, you don't. Don't overthink it. All we want is just one more belt and suspenders patch right there. I know because you put a patch on there, now you've created 3 more T's. You don't need to keep T'ing it, but I get guys that say that all the time. Well, dude, I got to keep adding more T-joints. No, one patch, one, done, be done with it. It's just a little belt and suspenders thing. And if you notice as the details get higher in years, from a 15 to a 20 to a 25 to a 30, the details increase, they demand more. A 30-year platinum system in rubber, you have to use 90 mil rubber. Your penetrations, when you field wrap them, basically have to be wrapped 3 times. So, say you've got a pipe like this right here. You field wrap that. If you field fabricate it, you've got to do it 3 times. So what you're doing is you're coming in with the 5-inch, you're going 2 inches up, 3 inches down. You come back with the 9-inch, 8 inches up, 1 inch down. Come back with another piece of 9-inch, 8 inches up, 1 inch down. It's triple wrapped. Each layer, look at it this way, counts as 10 years. That's one way of doing it. If you do it and you put that pipe boot on right there, once that's down, now you can either strip it in with 12-inch quick seam flashing, so that you're basically stripping in the entire flange. It's done. Or you can buy prefabricated cut peel and stick rubber targets, or you just cut the damn thing out of peel and stick rubber yourself. Just gonna make a hole in it, make it 12 by 12, cut a hole, strip in that whole flange. That's your 30-year detail. If you do an inside corner, you're gonna have your pig's ear right here. Normally you would strip in that pig's ear with some 5-inch, right? In this scenario, all you gotta do is take 9-inch, you're gonna strip it in here, you're gonna strip it in there, it's done. That's a 30-year detail. When you do an outside corner, this is all it is, gentlemen. I used to be scared when I did a 30-year platinum inspection because I didn't think I knew the details, but the details are really simple. When you do an outside corner, all you have to do is put a T-joint down. If you look at these T-joints, the middle is beefed up. See it? 10, 20, 30. So we're going to come in, we're going to stick that on there. We've got the beefed up middle, that'll be 10 year, that'll be 20 year, and your final one goes over all that, 30 year. That's a 30-year completed outside corner. That's all it is. T-joint patch, then a round 9-inch outside corner, done. Inside corner, pig's ear, strip in both sides with the 9-inch or 12-inch, whatever you want to use, it's done. Pipe boot, field wrap it, 599, or prefabricated pipe boot with a target over it, it's done. When it comes to your edge metal, you're going to strip that in. It's going to be, is it a 5 and a 9 still? You strip in your, say you got a gravel stop or a drip edge, you come through with your 5-inch, and then you go back over the top of it again with a 9-inch, that's done. And you'll have to add the belt and suspender patches in there. Got to always get you for that one, okay?
They go after the 9 then? 9-inch.
Once the 9-inch is done, hey, I got pictures of guys. They go in, they put all their belt and suspender patches on first, and they strip it in. I'm like, what the hell are you doing? It got to be on top, not below. But that's a good one, because we get asked, when you've got your joints in the metal, you've got to strip them joints in. I always tell my guys, strip in the joints before you run the 5-inch. That way it's already stripped in, because if you strip in that flange and then you put that patch on top to strip the joint in the metal in, now you got to caulk all the way around that patch, where if you put that patch, the joint in the metal on first, it eliminates having to caulk it. Okay? Now you did know, did we change that? Caulk that outside edge continually? Continuous bead? We got rid of that? Okay. So you guys know when you strip in metal flange, a gravel stop, whatever, we wanted the continual bead of lap caulk down that entire outside edge. That's gone, but the upslope side is still in effect. What do I mean by that? If you have a slope going to the edge, it's greater than 1 in 12. Is it 1 in 12 or 2 in 12? 1 in 12. You're supposed to caulk that 5-inch, that upslope side of the 5-inch, continuous with black lap caulk. Because you think about it, you got water, ice, snow, it's all sliding down there. It can tear that 5-inch up. I never understood why they would tell you to do the outside edge. That doesn't make sense, but the upslope side does make sense to me, because I've seen where ice has slid down a roof, especially a sawtooth roof, and it'll tear that edge of that 5-inch all to hell from that ice going across it, okay? Any questions? Barb plate. Oh, by the way, here's those prefabricated T-joint patches you guys can buy. Or you could cut it out of that roll right there. Whatever you want to do. Gonna make Kevin happy if you buy them. It's gonna make me happy if you buy either one, all right? 2 and 3/8 inch barb plate, correct? I say that right? Barb plate for mechanically attached EPDM, reinforced rubber, or TPO, reinforced membrane. You use the barb. You use the flat 2s if you're going into your RPF strip. Now, here's another thing I need you guys to look at. You've got what we call a factory edge or a salvage edge. You guys know what that is? It's that little bit of edge where there's no reinforcement built in. If you've got that edge, you do not need to caulk your edges. If you have a cut edge, which I have here, see where the white polyester reinforced fabric's hanging out? You will need to caulk that with this right here. Cut edge sealant. Now it comes in clear. It's like Elmer's glue. So anywhere you've got a cut edge where the fiber's exposed, you weld that, you come through, you seam seal your cut edges. All of them have to be that way. If it's got that factory edge, which is pretty much going to be every 100-foot edge of your seam that you run the robot down, you do not need to use this. Do you need to use it when you use this? No. That's not reinforced. It does not have any polyester reinforcement in it. Therefore, it cannot wick water. That can wick water because you've got a gray ply with a polyester scrim in the middle with white TPO on top. So it can suck water into that sheet. It's the craziest thing. I finally seen it after all these years. I took a piece of scrap that was laying on the roof overnight. I took that piece of scrap, I cut a square target, I started to weld it, and all of a sudden along the edge of that cut edge, it started blistering and bubbling up. What I found out is, from talking to people that are smarter than me, when you add that heat and there's moisture trapped in between those plies, it heats that up, it turns it into steam, it expands, and it blows those plies apart. Now you've got a blister in there. I've seen those blisters even though it's welded, where you can push down and air bubbles and water will come out of them. I've never seen it be an issue where it caused a failure of the roof, but I have seen it do that. So that's why you got to caulk your cut edges of your reinforced membranes. Same thing goes for black rubber. When you have reinforced black rubber, if you have a cut edge, you have to caulk the cut edges on reinforced rubber with black lap caulk. But the key to that is before you caulk it, you have to prep that seam with the Quick Prime Plus black primer. Take a brush or your squeezy pad, go down there and prime that cut edge so that that sheet can suck that primer in there to encapsulate it, close off the pores, and then you're going to caulk. That primer helps that black lap stay bonded to that seam, okay? Any questions on any of that? All right, anything you can think of?
Does that primer help it from cracking?
The caulk? Probably not. The only time I've ever seen caulk crack is when they go thin to wind. You know, back in the day, you take a bulk loader, fill that bulk loader up, man, you'd stretch that caulk up, go down through there and take a piece of cardboard or a plastic trowel, you would stretch that stuff, you'd take 2 foot of caulk and turn it into 10 feet.
Firestone used to have a plastic tip.
We still got it. We still got that. I myself didn't use those. I cut a piece of cardboard. I'm killing time while this train's going by. By the time you see those guys go like this, and this is what the plastic ones look like as well. You take that down through there and you trowel it. Now I tell everybody, don't over trowel it. Don't try to stretch that caulk, try to take 10 feet and turn it into 20 foot. Just put a slight trowel on there, is what I say to do. It's just my opinion. Eric might have a different idea. Anything, gentlemen? You want to see me do a pipe wrap, how I do it? No? Nobody wants to say anything? I don't have to do it, but I won't get paid. Really? You can do it. See how fast I bent over? I haven't recovered from my game on Sunday. 1-0. 14 seconds left and I got scored on. Number 1 guy in the league. Frickin' comes down the middle and blew it between my legs. They had 6-on-4. They pulled their goalie. Plus we were on a penalty kill. Gentlemen, when I do these, now again, this is just my way of doing this. I cut my target, and then once I got my target right here, I trace it with a Sharpie. Now I've got the diameter of my pipe. I'll cut my circle smaller than the actual diameter. I'll heat it, stretch it on there, okay? The key to doing any of these is having this right here. As long as you've got membrane turned up onto the vertical wall of that pipe, you can flash a darn semi-tire. I used to show off all the time and do these big, I used to do that green cleaner bucket wherever it is, or I'd do a 55-gallon round drum trash can, and people thought I was Elvis. But then Mark gave me away, was it Cape Girardeau, is that how you say it? Cape Girardeau, I was down there, and my partner goes, hey, tell him to do a 1-inch conduit. I did it. I hadn't did one in a while. The smaller the penetration, the harder it is. The whole key, gentlemen, the reason why I show this detail is because of right here. If you get that turn up onto that sidewall, you can flash anything, don't matter how big it is in diameter. Let me fire up that generator. You know, when you're heat welding with the handgun, you know, when we would do PVC, we crank them babies right up to 10 and just get after it. You know, when you're doing PVC, you know it's smoking. That's called chloride, polyvinyl chloride. I'm sure that chloride's not too good for your lungs. Probably causes cancer. I don't know, I'm still here though. But when you're welding PVC, you can crank that heat up. You can cook the hell out of that thing. TPO, not so much. TPO welds faster at lower temperatures. All right? So, you joking? Yes. Yeah. TPO, you can weld. I can weld faster. I can weld TPO faster at 7 or 6 than I can PVC at 10. It just welds twice as fast with less heat. When you melt TPO, it will bleed a little bit, but it does not give you the bleed out that PVC does. You know what I mean by that, gentlemen? When you're running that gun, you got your roller and you're rolling that edge, you'll get a little bit of gray oozing out of the side. That's bleed out. PVC bleeds like crazy. TPO bleeds just a little bit. One thing about TPO, when you're overheating it, you'll start to see it get a little yellowish. You'll get a oily, greasy, shiny look coming out of it. You're cooking the properties out of it. When you start seeing a greasy, oily look, that means you're getting it too hot. So you either got to go a little faster or you got to turn that gun down. But that's how you know, okay? So, I've got my gun on 6. I've already went ahead and cut this. What I like to do is cut it and stick it inside there so it kind of rounds it. Now keep in mind with this, we only call for a 1/2 inch turnout. That's all we want, 1/2 inch. We don't need an inch. 1/2 inch. And I can tell you, the more you try to turn out, the harder it is to get it flashed, okay? Meaning, you don't want to come in here and do this right here. Have that much turnout. Because you got to heat it, you got to stretch it. It's going to be really easy to get that to tear. So what I do is, I cut this so I got 8 inches up and about a 1/2 inch turnout. So I'm going to take my roller and I'm going to pre-crease this just a little bit. I don't want a lot because when I'm heating and stretching it, it will grow on me a little bit. All right. Come in here, get this nice and tight. I have C-clamps in there, but I'm not going to use them. Make sure it's tight, make sure you got an overlap. Now, do you need to glue these flashings when you put them on? I've never heard that one. I always heard we had to glue them. Well, regardless, I tell you, as long as you get it nice and tight, don't worry about it. I've always heard, we say that it says to glue them, but as long as you got it on there, you're good to go. All right, so here's the big secret right here. No, glue. Primer with peel stick. This, you got to yellow glue this shit. Come in. Tack weld that right there to your vertical. Right there's the whole secret. By having that turned up, it gives you something to tack your vertical flashing to. If you don't have any turn up, now you got to try to tack the turnout onto the roof, which makes it very difficult to do. Now that you've got this like this, now you can come in and pull this around here real nice and tight. You think it could get any louder in here? All right, now we get down to the hard part, and that is working your turnout down. You got to take your time. You don't want to rush this. You don't want to overheat it. With repetition, you will get faster. You know, it ain't all about, I know when you're on a job, you got to get these things done as fast as you can. Speed will come with repetition. So what I'm going to do here is, a lot of times I'll use my finger, but I'll just use my probe. All I'm going to do is come in here like this, and just start heating this up and stretching it. hard to do when this thing moves around. It's like trying to ride a mechanical bull. I never have. I just said I've seen that it looks like it's hard. Now when I come right here, I like to warm this up right here and use my probe to get that into that angle change. I'll bring this around. Now guys, once I get this tacked down, I can come back through, you know what I mean, with my probe and find out where it's not, and then just eventually work that down with the roller, okay? But that's the gist of it, all right? It's just tracing that hole, making the hole smaller, heating it, stretching it so you got your turn up, cut your flashings, you go about 9 inches, half-inch turnout. That's probably more than a half an inch. But like I said, when I go to pre-fold it, I try to fold it not too much because this will, as you're stretching it, it will grow out a little bit farther, okay? But that's going to be about it. Now, we don't require you to put water block inside there. I always thought you did, but we don't. If you do that as a company, more power to you. I myself personally, I always put water block inside anything that's going to be clamped off or T-bar or at your drain. I call those compression fit details, meaning anywhere the membrane is going to be compressed into a substrate, whether it be the membrane on a targeted drain being pushed down into the bowl, and the ring is going to hold that down, you're going to need to have water block in there. When you're going to clamp this off, you should put water block in there and clamp it off. It's not required, but I do that, okay? Same thing when you put T-bar to T-bar your flashings into the wall. You have to put water block behind there. And you guys know it's called various things: water block, water cutoff, water mastic, water stop. That's another one that I did. You can see how I've got the membrane turned up inside there. Not too good. It should have been stuck a little bit better, but you kind of get the idea. All right, you guys need to just lie and tell them I did a good job. It's the greatest thing you've seen since when Knievel jumped the fountains at Caesars back in January 1st of '67. No? You guys want some hats and shirts? No, yeah? All right, there's the hats. Go ahead and grab the hats, and then the shirts are right here.